an appropriate question, which is kind of why would these three seemingly, normal people choose to become faith leaders at this particular time and moment in history, but also the question about kind of, why we are motivated to be faith leaders at this time and how our traditions that we respectively come from kind of motivate that process. So I'm going to let everyone take turns introducing themselves.
Okay, I'll jump out there and stick my toe in the water first. With the greetings of peace, assalamu alaikum, that is, peace be unto you. My name is Tariq Najila. I serve as an associate imam with Imam Earl El Amin at the Muslim Community Cultural Center of Baltimore. We do a lot of interfaith work together, and it's through that relationship that I worked with Madeline to sit on that trilogue. And I wasn't born wanting to be an imam or anything like that, but I have an interest in faith. Interfaith is part of my life. My grandmother was a self-proclaimed Baptist missionary, and my dad, mom and dad converted to Islam in college. And so over Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas dinners and other dinners, we often had the discussion of religion. And so I got used to, being in an environment sometimes hostile, but talking about things that, we're supposed to stay away from, like religion and politics. Well, our dinner table would be a hotbed for that. And so I developed a knack for dealing with these things. And I found myself from college days to now being in environments like that. And so that being said, my topic for the trilogue was racism, the religious response. That was a really easy topic, right? So we had to address that from a religious perspective. And the thing that I kind of tried to bring to it was that as a Muslim, we're taught in the Quran that there's a verse that says, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. So this is the verse generally in a brief translation basically says that, O human beings, you're created from one single Lord, and male and female, different nationalities, ethnicities, and tribes, so that you can know and learn and have a mutual respect for one another. And it's not a verse that addresses Muslims, it addresses all human beings. So this is the spirit that we have in the faith, we're instructed to have. And the verse ends saying that barely the best one of you, or the most righteous of you, is the one who has the most God consciousness, or the one who lives their faith the best. So why would an imam, a rabbi, and an imam a pastor, rabbi, and imam come together at a function and meet for a year and have discussions and talk about things? Why? Because I believe we share a belief that our faith should be relevant to the world around us, and that if we really believe what we say we believe, then it should impact the environment in a meaningful way. So we strive to have genuine relationships and friendships. So that's what we're trying to see. Do I really like this person? Can we really talk about things that beyond photo op? And so we all kind of share that same spirit. And, it's surprising to me, because I honestly can say I have not met many people involved in interfaith work that have a spirit that's not always for the photo op or for the newspaper. It's more so for trying to see what can we really do. Can we come together and actually do something for real? So we said there are many more people like this. So maybe we should open that circle and see if you think the same thing. So that's why I'm here.
I found my way to the priesthood in New York City. I was working as a nonprofit director on the Upper East Side. And I found that the people that came to visit and use the services that we provided often wanted to pray with me or have a conversation about faith. I wasn't always Christian, but they always needed to have something about faith as a part of the identity of their background, their family, but also it was part of the yearning that they had. And so when I found my way into the church and I realized that it was, generally speaking, relatively old, and there's this perception that people that are younger don't need faith. They don't need to have a conversation about faith. They've kind of grown out of it. We've moved past it. I harkened back to those conversations that I had in New York City, and how everyone wanted to have a sense of family and relationship, and how that was core to who they were. And I'm planting a church in Canton, which is down in southeast Baltimore, and it's almost all young people because there's a desire to have a new sense of family there. And so when I met these individuals, I realized that it was across different interfaith lines, where people that are young actually have a yearning, a craving to have conversations about that forgotten or overlooked element of their personalities. And so we get to sit with each other and not, like you're saying, have photo ops. Let's say, we've signed this document that claims that we are connected, but literally build relationships with each other, meet each other's families, care about what the other ones care about, and do things together. The conversations we've had have been like nothing I've had with other interfaith leaders. There's no jockeying for position. There's no trying to up the other person as far as how they relate to interfaith dialogues at large. We're just building friendships. And that's what I'm excited about here, which is an opportunity not to have one-upsmanship, but inquisitiveness. Genuine inquisitiveness about people that have different but excited faith identities.
I like to tell people that at some point it was more radical for me to go to rabbinical school than to go on Fish tour. Fish is banned, and at one point they were considered outside of the margins. But somewhere along my own adolescence and young adulthood, I realized that actually to claim myself as a person with deep roots in tradition and with deep connections to the wisdom that we can learn from things that are age-old, not just things that are the next best, newest things, became a passion of mine that I always had, but an awareness that in Jewish tradition, and I would assume in all of our traditions, there is this notion that every generation has a responsibility from one generation to the next to create a link in a chain. About 10 years ago, I sat in a synagogue up in Pikesville on Friday night. I was here for a summer, and I was sitting in the congregation of my rabbinic mentor, and Rabbi Schwartz was talking about the circumcision of Isaac, Abraham's son. And I'll never forget that this was the night that the very first iPhone came out, because his words were that good and he's that relevant. And he started his teaching that night by saying, "Congratulations, you are the only people not in line right now to get this thing called an iPhone." And this was the first version. And then he went on to say, why is it that we're so fascinated with this thing that's so new and will be outdated tomorrow, but we're not fascinated with the fact that people have been circumcising their sons for 5,000 years? And while I think I always knew that, that moment was a turning point for me, because I realized that we're really working in a time where our bandwidths are shrinking, and our ability to tap into so many things at once and convince ourselves that we're able to multitask in real, meaningful ways and make connections in person because of the challenge and sometimes opportunity of being so connected online, that was going to actually be a very radical way to enter into my career in the world. And so that felt like something that would keep me on my toes. But I also have always really believed in the power of people who are driven by faith and tradition and want to heal the brokenness in the world. I'm the child of two New York Jews. My DNA is 50% Queens and 50% Brooklyn. And I grew up in Northern Virginia where there were no Jews. However, 5 of my best friends all went to the same Southern Black Baptist church down the road, and their parents wanted them to marry someone like them the same way my parents wanted me to marry someone like me. And their parents made them go to sing in the church choir and go to Miss Nelson's on Sunday afternoon, who happened to live across the street from me. And the commonalities that we had, as me being that Jewish girl that nobody really knew was like them, but kind of like them, and these friends of mine, that my deepest connections of what it meant to be among people of faith and strong spiritual conviction at a young age were not Jews at all. So over the course of my own trajectory, trying to kind of probe that notion that all of our traditions have this nod towards particular ways that we are supposed to bring the spirit of divine presence to motivate us to build community, to build relationships, to heal brokenness in the world around us, made complete sense to do so in communities of faith. And now, like my colleagues, we're constantly faced with this challenge of a bunch of people, I would say, in our own peer demographic who are like, I don't know if I want to get it. I don't know if I want to go there. And so it's really quite exciting that we're coming together in a larger group than the four of us for this first time in this conversation tonight. Because as we've been together now for a better half of a year, we've debated so many times what would that first conversation be. But I think just the nature of having all of you in this room, knowing that you all probably have stories of your own, is something that's very exciting to me as a starting point. And so I hope that'll be the foot that we step forward on as we kind of move into this next phase.
Something now we're going to do. I think what we're going to do now, we want to shift from you all looking at us, you all looking at each other in some kind of breakout session. Meaning, just to have a discussion, just like we've kind of introduced ourselves and said, why we're here. We can kind of do that with each other, kind of see why you're here. And we'll come through and pick tables and just kind of participate in that experience.
So the only thing is I want to encourage you to get together with people you don't know in this room. Because just by coming into this space and your presence here implies to me that this is a space where there's a lot of new friendships to be formed. And so I would invite you to kind of spread yourselves out with the people you walked in the door with for the sake of meeting some other folks. And I guess if we can just kind of get 3 clumps of folks together, then we'll probably all spread ourselves out. And I want to invite you to, there's kind of 3 questions. And we haven't really talked about whether we want each group to talk about the same question or to spread them all out, but I'm going to put them all out there, and then each of us can remind you of them, and maybe you'll have time to talk about one of them, possibly 2, depending on how much you go into each one. One would be is, if you could fix one of the problems facing society today, which would it be? Like, there's so many things to choose from. What's your number one, at least today and at this hour? Another question would be, what are the topics you think that groups like this could be talking about? And I would even offer the alternative. Are there any topics you think maybe we shouldn't be talking about? But what, if this is the beginning of a conversation, what are some of the conversations that we might have moving forward? And then the other question is related to that, which is, what do you think are the opportunities for groups of people of different backgrounds and different faith traditions coming together on a regular basis? If you could identify something that you think could come of that. And I guess the implied question is that a conversation you're interested in? Because we know that you might just be here to connect with us and hear a little bit from us. But we are also interested in knowing who else is interested in this conversation moving forward. So I invite you to get into small groups.
Just to add to that, for the logistics of it, what's the time we have for the groups?
I think that I want to make sure that we have time to have more group conversations. So I would say, let's do about 15 minutes. If people are really going, we'll maybe extend that to 20. But I want to make sure that we leave a decent amount of time on the waning side of what we're doing so that we can all come back together as a group and really, hopefully, start getting a conversation at least started.
So maybe logistically for that, at the end of 15 or 20 minutes, if you can pick somebody in your group to represent what you all discussed, so for all of us to kind of digest, and then we'll kind of, I think we'll talk about where we go from here.
Sure. All right. Any questions? Okay, so I invite you all to organize yourself like a big game of Huggy Bear in 3 groups.
Good. I'm going to go ahead. What I've been doing is putting it out.